So you have your coffee ready.
In essence, yes.
There's been some rage going on in my chat.
Oh, there's been rage?
Yeah. When are you gonna get that charade of a show going?
A charade, a charade. Oh,
Charade.
okay. Yeah.
You advertise coffee, but you never talk about it.
Well, we we just purchased a new coffee machine here in the Moore's apartment.
Oh.
Even though I don't drink it, Miss Moore's was partaking in the Starbucks experience a little too much for my taste.
Ah,
So
yes.
we got a really nice machine that I guess I don't really know much about it, but I guess coffee really doesn't work unless you brew a certain amount of it, right? Because the grains and the rate, there's like something to do with ratios. But then
Yeah. It
whatever
has to
this,
like filter through it, right? So you
right?
with coffee, you make a filter out of the coffee, which is the point. And if there's no
Okay,
like if imagine it's sifting through like a paper towel, right? It just goes straight through versus going
right,
through like 10 layers of paper towels. Obviously, it's
right.
gonna the water is gonna like infuse more with the as it
Okay,
goes through.
right. So I guess the problem is if you put not enough water because you only want a small amount, and you have the normal amount of whatever the beans or grains or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
then the coffee's too strong. It's like
Yes, exactly.
whatever. So whatever the thing is we got actually has some technique or does something. So it's a single, because I don't like this. There's these
Oh,
Keurig
a single
single cup thing,
serving kind of thing.
but those are just a huge waste. The cups are terrible, and it's like just stupid. So this is actually brews a regular. You put grounds in, but
Yeah.
it brews one cup, a little bit more than one cup. It's like a travel mug,
Okay.
and so it ends up, instead of her daily coffee being, I don't know, $4 or something, it ends up being 20 cents or 15 cents or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Obviously, minus the cost of this thing that was $200 or something.
I'm
So
not a
yeah,
big fan of buying. Like I like making a little. If I buy coffee out, it has to be something special, right? With like
okay,
the syrup and everything and the special tastes, like the things you don't have at home. That's when I
right,
buy my coffee out, because then the
yeah,
coffee itself becomes like a little dessert kind of thing,
right,
right? It becomes special and not just a
right,
cup of coffee you buy at Starbucks or whatever.
right. I think so. Her problem is she walks to 2 days a week. She has two jobs, part of being a researcher. So she walks to one of the jobs, and so she I don't know, passes 12 Starbucks or something. So I guess it's
It
tough to
is.
resist on the
Oh, it
way.
is. It
So
is. It is nice because they do make good coffee.
right. Okay.
You don't do coffee, right?
No, I don't. I don't at all. I mean, I don't
Well,
know anything about it. You
there's no
know,
need there's no need to drink coffee if you don't want to drink it.
right. Well, I guess and on that note, we can go right into
Yeah, let's
coffee
get
talk.
going.
Coffee talk number 8. Although
Number eight.
not about coffee though. Although the intro is about coffee. Um, I want to say, maybe before we really get into the episode,
Okay.
I do want to say, and I'm curious on your thoughts.
Okay.
People seem to have really, really good feedback about the Mr. Llama episode,
Yeah.
and then the talk afterwards. I just thought that was just really nice of people to,
Oh yeah,
listen
for.
and give feedback and
Oh yeah, for sure.
all that stuff. I mean, I actually haven't looked in. What's today? Is this maybe 2 or 3 days at your YouTube? There were a lot of comments there, weren't there? At least when I looked.
Yeah.
It was a fair. It was a
Yeah, especially on the first one. The after one, not so much, but
okay.
on the first one, definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
general, I think a lot of these things we've been discussing on the podcast have been getting a lot of response on YouTube, and also on I don't know if you've seen on Reddit.
Oh yeah. Oh no, no. Some of the Reddit threads really blow up. Like I think
Yeah, at least the discussion part
yeah. No,
goes
I think
really far,
that's
and it's really nice to read afterwards.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
feel at
that's
least.
good. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it's sort of a nice. It's weird. It is really actually tied in, and it's funny. This is something that Noogie sort of came up as a topic, and I think that really ties into the whole discussion thing. It's sort of funny how it all works out,
On
but the third party tools,
Oh yeah,
it's specifically path of building, because that's obviously the thing that's lighting everything on fire right now. And it's weird.
yeah,
it was on my list of things to try, and I just never got around to it. Never got around to it. And I was like, what could it possibly do? I mean, I use the offline thing, and people had been coming to my channel asking me if I use path of building for I don't know how long, some time. And I think because I'd been such a big proponent of the offline skill tree, I'd always, if people want to come see my build, I'd always say, I don't care what you're doing. You have to view a build that I've linked you somewhere, you must use the offline skill tree, because at one point it was tough to import all the trees around and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I never used it. And then Mathel's video came out, and I watched him use it. That was the big thing, because I never actually seen anyone using it.
Oh, okay.
And watching him use it, I was like, wow, this because it was linked on Reddit, I think. And
yes,
so
it was.
So I'm watching it, and I'm like, holy crap. I guess this thing really, I know I looked at it when it was very new, and it didn't really seem like it did all that much.
Well,
but
at this point, it does pretty much everything. Well, it compiles all the data and outputs all the things you need to know, like how much damage you're gonna do, your exact health pool, like all these kind of things.
Right. Are you using it then?
No.
You're not. Okay.
No. So I've tried it a few times.
Okay.
Well, so it is okay. So what I would use it for is if I was in dire need to know whether or not I should purchase a piece of gear.
Okay.
That is where I would
like a ring or something that would do DPS versus something else.
Yeah. For the most part, I feel like I have a good general idea of whether or not something is an upgrade. And I rarely go out and buy things if it's not like really an upgrade, so it's fairly easy to see. But let's say something larger, right? Let's say you wanted to change up the build and you wanted to go low life, and you wanted to see exactly what the ES difference would be, what the damage difference would be, all these kind of things where you heavily shift your build. I could really see it being a very powerful tool for that. That's where I would use it. Because for the most part, I don't really care whether or not I have 9.5 or 10,000 ES, or whether or not I'm doing 100k or 105k. It doesn't really matter to me that much. So yeah.
Yeah, because the part that was so interesting to me was, I mean, I guess they're getting minion support. That was the other thing.
That's kind of nice, yeah.
Yeah, when he announced that, I was like, okay, I'm interested to see, because the thing that I've been personally trying to do is, since I did the flame golem, I've done it twice now over the last 2 leagues, and somebody had mentioned in a Reddit thread talking about how you figure out what is the optimal DPS setup for the golems. In case people, anyone doesn't know, the Harmony Jewel gives you a bonus based on the number of different golems you have out. So, you have a flame golem, and then you have a lightning golem, and you have a stone golem. So then that would give you, I guess it's 2 times the bonus. Right? So if you just have flame golems out, you get no bonus. And then each additional different golem you add gives you this bonus, and that stacks.
Ah, yes. So
it's like, it sort of works, I guess, sort of like Grand Spectrum, or sort of like, I'm trying to think of what other mechanics where it's like, okay, it's...
Yeah, well, it's a stacking bonus versus right. Let's say that your flame golem is all your damage, right? Because that's all your damage, right? And then you wanna try and figure out whether or not you should have an additional flame golem out, or versus having an actual different type of golem,
right? Which does 10% of the damage, but then it boosts all the rest of the golems.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like a breaking point to where you would rather have a different golem that doesn't do any DPS but buffs everything else. And there isn't in PoE, there isn't in-game, there isn't in any in-game information on the sheets that will give you kind of the accumulative DPS and all that kind of stuff.
Right. No, there's not. There is. So it's interesting, even though without, we haven't talked about whether we like it or not. Even if this thing, let's say you came down on the side of you didn't like this tool, and I can totally see why you won't like it just for what it does to the game. For things like minions, it would almost be invaluable, because the only thing you really could have done would be change things around and kill like Merciless Vol or something several times, and like with like a stopwatch or something, and try to see. Obviously there's the just the eye test. If you blow it up in a millisecond and before it took 3 seconds, obviously you're like, well, obviously whatever I did was really strong. But yeah. So anyway, so it's interesting because
This goes for like everything with animated weapon as well, with all the
right.
all the different minions where you don't have a number that lists DPS
Tooltip.
on the
Yeah.
tooltip. Yeah.
Right. So, it's interesting to me because I really wanted to. So anyway, someone posted in this thread.
Yeah.
Okay, so 10 harmonies, and the ultra secret build is you get your flame golem to do a huge hit, and then
it
because of burns, and then of course because of the way these jewels work, because they work like, I guess I don't know that they work like grand whatevers, grand spectrum, grand.
No, I don't think they work like Grand Spectrum. No, they don't. They don't.
Because those multiplicatively stack, right? So okay, so it doesn't quite.
Well,
does it go 20 and then 44
yeah,
and then on and on and on? Okay,
it's like 1 times 1 times whatever, and then it becomes as many as you have of them. It times 1 that extra. So it's, if you have 1, it's 1 times 1 times 4. If you have 2, it's is it then 1 times 2 times 4? Or is it 2 times 2? Oh, it's 2 times 2, right? Times 4, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't think the harmonies work like that. I mean, this is where we get into.
So whenever you start stacking the later ones, you get like 400 at the end per extra jewel.
Okay, fine. So yeah, anyway, I don't believe it works like that. Although someone could correct me. We're getting into crazy math. Let's just say easy enough to say having more of them is better if you're taking advantage of what they do. And somebody was actually really cool. Someone who's really versed in math, and I am not, posted a not a quadratic equation, but posted an equation where you just plug in the variables, and then you put it. You can solve it, but at least it's easy. It was Wolfram Alpha, and you just post it in there, and it tells you it solves for T, and T is the number of non-flame golems you should have in this equation.
Okay.
So anyway, I was curious myself because there really are a couple of different builds.
Yeah.
There's a softcore version, which is you get 6 golems, you play elementalists, and you die on bosses. But your golems don't die, and they don't take elemental damage, so therefore they can't die, and they just finish off whatever you're fighting.
Well, they can't die if it's physical damage, but no physical damage in the game can kill them at the moment.
Right, because they have 35,000 health or whatever. So and they have huge regen and stuff. So anyway, so like that version, they say you should have 2 or 3 of a different golem type. And so I was interested because me playing what I think is the better version for hardcore, you have 4 golems because you use a shield and you go necromancer because it's more defensive. So how do you make it work with 4 golems? And it actually turns out, because I had experimented just on my own, that it's basically you could have 3 flame golems in one, or you could have 4 flame golems, and it's about the same. Right? It's not. So there's not really a huge difference because you're not really able to take advantage of it. But that said, there's no way to do anything until you use a tool like this path of building. You can't even. So like if I was to say, take out for chance to ignite, or how do I get huge ignites rolling? There's no way to do that. But apparently this thing, once the kinks are worked out, will be able to tell us pretty reliably how hard you'll hit and how big the burn will be. Although it seems like when I tested it wasn't there.
So that's not really okay. So that kind of thing that is something you can do already without the tool, though. You can figure this out yourself.
Oh yeah, it just takes a long time. Yeah, it's different. You can't just click a button to change between slower proj, or I'm just trying to think of jewels I would swap in for GMP. Slower proj or poison, or you know what I mean? Like
it's
there's
not that
things...
hard to math out.
No, definitely not. But this makes it for
okay.
Zero effort. That's what I'm saying.
Instead of having to set up your own spreadsheet and where you plot in new values or you go through the entire fucking
and you could do your math
equation, right?
Right. I mean, that's the other thing. This is crowdsourced math.
Yeah, you import your character. And you swap the gems on the tool. Done.
Right.
And it can output you a number.
And I mean, for me, that's the crazy part because like I'm making this block character, and I'm like, So I want to work poison in, but how do I do it? Well, I can put on Legacy Voidheart, you run a bunch of jewels, see what the damage is. Put poison in the link instead of added fire, run a bunch of things.
Yeah, yeah.
If I do poison Voidheart, I do rapid decay, or do I do added chaos? And I mean, I first really came to my notice when somebody was like, "Moore's your ancestral war chief character that you have a legacy Voidheart on. Added chaos is more damage than rapid decay."
Yes.
Which doesn't make sense to me. Although I guess because I guess the poison stacks aren't really that high, and then I went in and did it myself, and yeah, it wasn't earth-shatteringly better.
No,
so it was close.
no. It's just close. Yeah.
Yeah. So before the tool, or if you did the math, you'd be like, okay, well, they're close enough, whatever. But so it's interesting. Do you think this is? I kind of think this might be. It might be a negative, or it might be a real positive, because if everyone knows. So go ahead. Yeah.
Well, will it be a positive or a negative?
Yeah.
Since we could always, this is not something that's been impossible to do before. It just gives players easier access to the information without being a math wizard or an Excel spreadsheet wizard. That in itself, I don't think is a problem at all. I think that's fine. I think tools like these are fine. There still is a step to where you have to go grab the tool, you have to import, you have to do all these small steps before you get it. It's not in the game itself. But I think that's actually important that it's not in the game. And I don't think it should. Because it gives you, at least to me, what happens every time like a game or a community gets these kind of tools to give hard numbers for certain builds, it creates the idea that this is better than that, because it says so on the spreadsheet, or on the tool tells me I do more damage. But one thing a lot of players tend to forget is that, sure, you might lose 5% DPS, but having an extra flame golem, for instance, in your case, might actually work out better for them because of the spread of damage and, like consistency of damage, with having things shooting more. Like maybe you don't need to one-shot things 3 times over.
How about just jewel slots? I mean, gem slots. Right. I have to put another golem in a slot, and I don't have space.
Let's assume this. Let's assume that you're war chief guy, right? Let's say the opposite was true, where rapid decay was the stronger one and added chaos was weaker. And you've been playing with added chaos under the assumption that was better, and then you swap it around and it actually feels worse going to rapid decay. That could, because that's the kind of thing I know will happen, where you take out, because this is something that you can never see on like a spreadsheet, is the fact that, well, like the initial hit might have more value than the degen effect coming after. Right? So you're bonking things immediately.
Times. Right.
But it's also like there's a duration that it has to run before the damage starts accumulating.
Right.
And so you have these, like, there are so many situations in PoE where things are very ambiguous, but there's not really a clear winner. Even if the number, right? Even if there might be a tool that tells you a number that's bigger, that might not actually be the winner. But because everyone's using this, and this becomes the kind of the way
standard.
The standard of the community. Like this is how we like measure things now. Well, then it just becomes this idea that this is then better than that, when we don't know. So I think that might be a problem if it becomes like the standard that everything is measured by in an environment where you can't really measure things.
Right. Well, my experience with a tool like this previous to this was World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And I remember there was this period where people were freaking out about, because DPS warriors had been sort of a new thing, and that's what I played. And there was a period where they were the strongest. Well, why were they the strongest? Which was, eventually it was talked about, but people sort of lost their minds before they really thought about it, because we had it was like a 30-second cooldown every 3 minutes. So fights that lasted, and of course, and warriors had a thing, for anyone who didn't play World of Warcraft, under 20%, they had an execute ability, which is the strongest, basically one of the strongest attacks, only usable sub 20%. So if the fight lasted 3 minutes 30 seconds, 3 minutes 40 seconds, 3 minutes 20 seconds, which a lot of fights at the time were lasting about that, boss fights, we were by definition the best class because our cooldown would come up and we were in the execute phase and blah blah blah.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if the fights were a minute and a half, you're kind of like, or 2 minutes, you're like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if it lasted
No.
5.5 minutes, it was kind of like, I mean, we were okay. We weren't top of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's funny how these things, like you're saying, like, okay, rapid decay, but it feels worse because it only this as a spreadsheet I'm sure notes somewhere, people, there's going to be someone who's like, well, because you check the thing, it's a
Mm-hmm.
boss fight and it lasts a minute or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you have to get 10 stacks and then it's better, etc., etc. So I mean, again, I think I think they're great tools. It's just unfortunate, like these things, like always happens with these things, they end up being sort of, as you were alluding to, they end up not ruining, but they end up being sort of the new basis from which we then have all discussions a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Because it's like,
yeah.
okay, the spreadsheet says this, and so therefore, I mean, I can totally see. Well, let's just say poison was not known, right? Let's pretend we lived in the world where Crip told us about poison. No one knew it was good before Crip
Okay.
showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the spreadsheet, like, I'm sitting here fiddling with poison, and it's like, holy shit! Almost no matter what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
poison adds a ton of damage to
Yes.
every single thing that I'm ever on every build.
Yeah.
So it would be so obvious at this point if you take the spreadsheet as being correct, and of course I can see GGG pushing back, being like, "You don't know that that's right." Well, this thing seems very comprehensive at this point, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I could see that being actually good in the sense that it would get poison nerfed. Now, it's been obvious to everyone since it came out that poison and double dipping is absurd, and we're
Mm-hmm.
still where we are. We'll have to. Again, 3.0 is supposed to fix it, so that's fine. This is the last league, we hope, of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, I think there can be some really good things. Of course, that natural progression of sort of discovery and everything can, of
Mm-hmm.
course, be, I guess, for the same thing for the people who want to just make a build on their own. I do think that there's a nice middle ground. There's a middle ground between using this tool in a good way, like, okay, so I really have never known that 40 strength as an Iron Will character versus 10 crit. I've been able to sort of intuit it from the tooltip and
Yeah.
from, but now I can really hammer out which is the best
Mm-hmm.
possible path. And I think that that's great.
Yeah.
So
It's nice. It's those kind of things. It's nice to know as a player.
yeah,
You know
right,
that you're not making. You know that if I go through all these steps, then I'm making the right choices, and this is actually the better one.
right.
That is a nice thing to know for players. I think. I think as
Yes.
long as they keep it separate to where the player can then go out and actually come by this information themselves. Because I
Right.
don't know, what would you feel about if everything was like listed in game? How would you feel about that?
Well, so that's a really good question. I think that I mean, maybe this will force them to do it. They're going to have a DPS for everything, a place you can see maybe just the DPS, because I mean, I do think that's a weird, like, not dichotomy, like, why minions, people have been so annoyed about minions, and minions clearly seem to be such a bigger and bigger part of the game, and maybe some other
Mm-hmm.
mechanics are hidden. I think that they need to sort of level that so that I can, like you can with Earthquake, put on a tabula. I remember I used to always try to
Mm-hmm.
borrow a tabula because I never kept them, and just socket different gems and look at the DPS and see how
Yeah,
it felt.
yeah, yeah.
I think that, I mean, that's sort of a fun way to sort of experiment and grow and see what's going
It
on.
is. It
And
is.
so if they don't give you the ability to do that, that's part of the reason this stuff comes to be, right? Because they've kept stuff hidden, which that's clearly on purpose, right? We know
Yeah.
that they've said. I mean, I think it's sort of I mean, I can't think of an example of them saying this about this stuff, but I know they said it in terms of racing. Like, one of the reasons they didn't ever let you practice descent or endless ledge or these other
Mm-hmm.
race types, because people would figure things out and it would get boring, is what they would say.
Yeah.
And so I kind of I see their perspective, especially with this thing, because it's kind of like, you could just play Path of Building dummy and never even play your character,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, well, you see, if I just get all these 6 things, I'll have a million DPS and I won the game. And that sort of takes it away. I mean, I hope it's not used for that. I don't think it will be.
Well, that kind of
Um,
thing was already being done before,
True.
just by theory crafters who were proficient in math and setting up proper like spreadsheets and that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So
So
it's not like we're still gonna like people are still gonna break the game the same way. It's just more available to everyone.
right.
So I guess it becomes like
The cycle's
whenever
faster then.
yeah exactly, the cycle is faster, and whenever something really is OP, we have a lot more iterations by default because of this tool, and so therefore it's gonna get propped up to the right. It's gonna come closer, like comes to the surface way quicker because
Right.
everyone is just gonna like okay, I'll try this. Oh, this is OP. Okay, we're gonna use it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's of course it's not like that doesn't already happen. Like
No, of
that
course.
video, the video of the guy. I guess the mechanic is he has enough DPS to kill Azaro, but it's the fact that the totem sets off the binds instantly before the millisecond Azaro becomes able to be damaged. That then
Yeah.
skips the entire phase. Or I don't know if you saw that video
I saw, yeah,
on
some guy who literally just made the entire thing skip.
right, right.
So what
So
was that about?
well, I think it's so as it was. I think it was said in the thread. First of all, Chris said this is not an exploit and totally fine. Although people really took issue with him checking on it. That I have to say, as sort of a person who in the past I've criticized Chris, and I think that that's okay to do.
Why
What?
shouldn't?
Why shouldn't he check with the dude who designed it? Chris isn't the programmer. Chris is the CEO. Of course, he's going to check and make sure that is this a bug or what's going on?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I would want to check everything, but anyway, the person has enough DPS to kill Azaro, but I
Okay.
guess he always queues up or to do a third. Is it a third on Azaro each phase?
Yeah,
Yeah.
some, yeah.
So he has enough DPS to do a third instantly, but Azaro always queues up. Maybe it's like 3 abilities or a round of abilities. I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not familiar enough with Azaro to
Yeah, yeah,
know.
he queues it like normally whenever you do it, it seems that he will like you're gonna like do the damage as like he spawns and then he doesn't immediately just transition away. He has to like go through his motions of things that he needs to do, and then he jumps back. Even if you like kill him almost instantly,
Right.
then he still
Right.
runs around a bit and then he goes back.
And then he does this thing, yeah,
Yeah,
or he has to wait for something to spawn, if it's that type of his
yeah,
encounter or whatever, and then he completes his motions and goes.
yeah.
So I guess with the totem detonate mines, I think is what it was.
Okay.
That he's able to that he's I don't know, maybe if a fifth of or not fifth, a 0.05 of a second or a tenth
Oh,
of
so
a
he has
second.
mines and totems will trigger the mine itself, so he never
Right.
has to like queue it up himself.
Right. So I guess that's the thing is that
Oh.
thing is server based.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it detonates the thing the moment it has a target, and it doesn't have a
Yes.
target until he's available. So then it skips the whole thing. And there was a whole discussion in the thread
Huh.
about is this, what's going to happen with speed running? And somebody made in my opinion, very astute point.
Okay.
Well, now everyone knows,
Yes.
and therefore you could just make that character.
Mm-hmm.
And the point that this feels like a whatever, you could make that argument on anything. Maybe if say only one person knew that Blade Vortex Poison was insane and they were winning the
Mm-hmm.
ladder all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, that's if they don't choose to share it, that's their
Yeah.
prerogative. And
Like some people have not in the past, right? There's been plenty
right,
of builds that are not has not been pushed to the forefront of the Reddits,
right,
which was like, oh, what's that guy doing? And he's
right,
like crushing everyone on the ladder or something, and nobody
right,
knows because he has a hidden profile.
right, right. So like I know people were wondering about it with the Burning Miscreants, that
Yeah,
whole thing.
yeah,
Like, what are these people doing to get 300 million? Because back then, getting 300 million XP per hour was just
insane.
fucking out of
Mm-hmm.
control, and they were just running. It's so funny how they're doing what the normal playstyle is right now, which is just running through the map,
Yes.
basically with no regard for anything. And so, anyways, so yeah, that's until it comes out, we have no idea, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's in that regard, I can see this. It can be a positive, right? Because people could sit there and go, really sort of trying to churn through it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, that means we devour the content faster than ever before. So,
I don't
I mean,
know.
you don't use it. You're saying so. Then
Yeah, but
you think you don't need
even if
or
I did, I don't
okay,
see how I would devour content quicker
okay,
because you still have to play the game. I mean, people have this idea that, oh, this just gives you a free win. No, there's still the game you have to beat. Like you get this as a tool to to create the character, but
okay.
now you actually have to create it.
So okay, so this and okay, so just to tie in a little bit, not to beat to death the auction house thing, but right, PoE Trade is a third party tool, and don't you think it suffers from some of the same sort of like discussions where people are like, well, it's all available, so what's the point of even playing? Because I can just buy, I can buy every piece of gear, or you know what I mean? I feel like that hysteria has sort of gone a little crazy, a
Yeah,
little bit.
I would say it's the same thing,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And until you actually put it into play and you play the game, it hasn't done anything,
right.
right? Oh, I can just go there and buy the gear. Well, then go there and buy the gear and then complete the game. But very few people take it to the actual point of completing the game, be it the highest level or all the content down, all the
Right,
achievements
right,
done,
right,
X amount of like currency accumulated, right? Let's say, oh,
right.
I can just trade and get 5 mirrors, like Sis has done, right? Oh, the game is so easy now. I can just use PoE.trade and it's easy.
Yeah,
But that's that kind of misses the point because that doesn't take into account how much time anyone spends to get to that and
right.
how difficult it is to accumulate that much. Oh, it's so easy, but like you have to spend 10 hours a day
Yeah.
focused on it.
Well, I do think that's really. It's funny that people have that because at least for me, I know. Okay, so if one of my goals is I love trading and I want to get perfect gear and stuff, right, 'cause I know that's one of the first times people really came to my channel was I was trying to craft the perfect iron will chest because it didn't exist. And yeah, I'm super rich at this point. I don't have 5 mirrors, but I got a lot of fucking wealth at this point, and I can't just buy a perfect ring, a perfect boot, a perfect glove
No,
for
because
my
they're
block
so
character.
expensive.
They don't exist. I haven't seen it for sale. Maybe
Yeah,
they
yeah, and if
exist
you
and
see
they're
them for
not for
sale,
sale.
like like if you see something that you would consider perfect, it would still be like it would be worth so much that even with your wealth, you would be struggling
Still being
to
shunned. Yeah,
justify buying that piece.
right. And then on top of that, usually it's not perfect. Like I bought a ring that was really sweet, and I think it has 15 lightning res. So it has 4 really good stats and one's dumpster. So now I know from personal experience from crafting rings that's basically a fool's errand. I'm not going to even bother trying to replace that. But my gloves and my boots and maybe might try a little bit on a neck. I'll try to craft something because I know there's a chance for success and maybe I craft a really cool thing. And so I think when people have this whole they're done and their character's perfect, I mean, I don't agree with that. I mean, my golem character is 100, and I would replace like first of all, I would love to get an actual since I've now evolved something like 225 rare minion speed necklaces and not once hit +1 curse on one of them. So, there's always something that can be done
Yeah.
if that's your goal. I just think it's people just sort of it's almost like they're searching for an excuse to just be done. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
they're justifying in their mind why they're okay, instead of just being like, well, I've played a lot and I've had a lot of fun and now it's time to do something else. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's kind of like where we
So,
are in the league, right? Like people I've done all the challenges. I made
okay,
a
so
character.
I have a question for you here. So
Yeah.
if you let's say that like there's been a lot of talk of everything is so fast, you're done so quickly, there's nothing to do and all that. Do you even think that's true?
Oh, you mean in terms of that statement itself being true, like that you're done or
Yeah,
whatever,
or that the
or
game has somehow gotten to a place where we finish content so quickly that there's nothing left to do.
okay. So let me say I would answer it to 2 ways. I
Okay.
think if you view it from the perspective, I mean, it's really unfortunate. I hate because I really it's not just PT who feels like this.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with PT more than I think. I mean, I think a lot of people should agree with that perspective, whatever that perspective you want to call that perspective. I do think there's a point there in terms of You do get to things faster, right? We get to end game faster.
Yeah.
So there's things have been condensed for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Leagues used to be 4 months, now they're 3 months. So okay, that I think that is a good thing, right? I think
Okay.
that frees people in terms of then somebody who has less time available, right? Who can't poop sock, right? Like perhaps maybe you and I could. They are able to achieve things in a quicker and I think quicker fashion. I think that's better. I think there's so much more to do though, right? That's the
Yeah.
part that's always so funny. Back then, when it took longer to achieve things, there also was
Fewer
what
things to
we
achieve.
yeah, there was no Siri, there was no real end game content of any kind. I mean, was there something to do before it's Siri? I mean, you couldn't hit 100 until
No,
basically
that
when
was
it's
that
Siri
was
came
that
out.
was what we were doing back then. It was
Right,
crafting and
crafting.
leveling to 100. Those were the
Right,
two.
right. Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, and it is funny.
So
Part
you
of
see it
me
as
is,
a necessity to condense the game at some point, where
I
we.
think, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, no. It's just that was the question. Do you see it as a necessity, like as something that they should do over time?
I think it's just a natural. I think it's just a natural sort of
Mm-hmm.
evolution of the thing. But I think that the argument that, well, since I get to 92 in 3 days or 2 days now or whatever, and then I mean these are all artificial things that you've thrown up.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something more to do. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so of course I've had some internet problems, and I've been able to. I've unfortunately played less than I would have
Sure.
liked. But even then, I have two more builds I want to try.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the challenges left. I don't think I'll get 40/40 because
No, that's always the
there's one of them
same.
is really
Yeah.
dumb. Oh, it's the kill the Azaro Prophecy. I never even played Prophecy League, so I don't even know how to go about completing the Prophecy. So there's going to be one or two achievements I'm never going to do.
Yeah.
But saying that I'm done with the game, not having done that, again, that's an art. You have
Yeah,
set your barrier
as
where
like
you want.
as an aspiring completionist, then that is not something you can say.
Right. So I think it's okay to be like, well, I'm done because I've done what I wanted to do. That's
Yes.
totally, again, you were saying the same thing but framed in a different way.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Instead of being like, well, there's nothing left to do, and the game's so short now and all this stuff. Yeah, all right. Now, if you want to argue that the leveling process is short or one of these other, okay, well, that's a discussion we can
Mm-hmm.
have, and I might agree, or we might not agree, or whatever. I can say, because people have asked me going for 100, you never want to do it before, and I was like, well, for me, racing was my sort of end game thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah.
though it's a low level character, that's where I focused my
Yeah.
energy in theorycraft. Even though there's not much, it's not like where you have your magma ore build and I'm on a golem build and somebody's on a, I don't know, what was I looking at? The Sire of Shards, Cyclone, Magma Orb
Oh no.
thing. It was crazy. So
The cock sire shards.
right, cockside. That's exactly. So okay, so yes, end game. There's way more diversity compared to racing, but
Mm-hmm.
in racing, that little thing that saves you 5 seconds. Wow, that's a big deal. But with that sort of removed, I say, okay, so maybe I'm going to focus my energy in a different spot. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of fun, even though for my own personal problems, I wasn't able to really compete on the push up to the point when the internet problems started. I was having a lot of fun. It was a really cool thing to do. So I think that all too often people, they focus on something. Now, I will say I took a break for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes people who are really like, well, there's nothing left to do, they need to take a break and reevaluate what am I getting out of this? Am I having fun still? What's the thing that I can do in this thing? Because
You took a break from PoE.
from PoE, yeah, just for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really. I have to say, I really didn't like Prophecy League. It's interesting how we're now 20. Are we 18? I don't know the number of leagues we're in. I feel like even though I really didn't play it, to me, Prophecy feels like the worst league. But I guess some people really liked it. So I don't want to make that call. But compared to Breach and Legacy,
I compare Prophecy to Talisman, which
right?
I also
Talisman's
I hated that. It was just there's so many instances where you try and do all the right things and you still don't get anything out of it. You still just felt like, oh, I just wasted my time again. I feel like it's a lot of the same with Prophecy. not as much because you're guaranteed, right? At some point, you have to
Right.
grind through all these like prophecies, like oh, and then you have to run out, you have to do that thing, and you have to go over there, and you have to do that thing. So I don't know. There's a lot of things where it just gets very repetitive, very tedious to complete.
Yep.
Where Breach is more of like, well, I want to run this and kill a lot of monsters right now, and you do it,
Right.
and that's kind of the end of it.
Well, it's funny. I don't know. Have you ever felt like, well, I guess because I'm a more cautious, careful player, but
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of prophecy where, because of how PoE works, right, where scaling goes crazy once you have
Yeah.
two multipliers. So you have a prophecy where it's like rogue exile spawns, and you happen to have, I mean, there
Oh,
is
a
no
dangerous
damage
map.
mod, rogues,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or whatever, and then it all comes together, and you get one shot
Mm-hmm.
because you're never supposed to ever face Natalie Portman with extra damage,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
then
that can
the
happen
prophecy.
whether or not you like it, or whether or not you want it or not. This can always happen because you can get random spawns.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just think the prophecy system where you never know where that's going to proc. You know what
Aha.
I
Okay,
mean?
like
That's what I
that.
mean. Where I'm doing a if I was like,
Well,
okay,
then you
this is the
just
map that's
if
going to
you
proc.
at that point, I'm just gonna with that specific thing, I would say, well, that's on you for not sealing your prophecy. If you don't want to have
Okay,
it proc at the wrong moment.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, me, I just don't run prophecy at all, rather than
Oh,
deal with
okay.
all the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rigmarole. But yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. So I will give GG credit. They always introduce a way to, well, at least most of the time, they introduce a way to sort of get out of it or fix it, or you don't want to deal with it. That's totally fine. But anyway, what I mean. So what do you think? Right, because you in reality play more than I do, right?
Yeah,
In
I
terms
probably
of
do.
leveling a character and like doing different
Yeah.
interesting builds. So you've really experienced way more of the game, especially because I'll make the same build 3 leagues in a row if I like it, right? Whereas that's not
Yeah.
something you really would ever do. So what do you?
It depends. It depends on what my goal is. I would do that if my goal is actually pushing. Back when I
Right,
used to push a lot of levels and doing all the 1 weeks, I played
right.
Lightning Arrow all the time because it
Okay,
was
that's fair. Right.
like that was one of the best XP builds at that time. Um, but wait, what was the question again? Like, what
Well, just
do?
the condensing of
Yeah.
where is it, do you like it? Is it natural? Is it,
Well, I
what do
think,
you,
yeah, I think it's, well, again, I also think this is the way it has to be and the way it has to go. If they want to
right.
cram more, like the thing is, the leagues are not getting longer. I think they've found a good duration for the leagues. And so if they
Yes.
want players to actually achieve certain things within their game, right? They want players to either have enough time to either get to like an Uber bus or Uber lab or a level whatever, or they want to get like their certain gear, they want to do chaulas, right? There has to be a certain amount of time it takes to get from A to B. And if everything has to be drawn out to the point where level 100 takes 3 months, well, then all the other end game grinds also have to take that long. Because they kind of have to be on the same level, I feel. And so I think it's good that they're condensing them a bit. One of my fears, if I have to be, would be something like Uber at Siri, for instance. I feel like has gotten too easy. To where you can, I know that especially on hardcore, not that many players do them, and well, I wouldn't say too easy, but well, yeah, actually too easy with poison,
Right.
with some of these broken damage mechanics. But I do think this is it's gonna get taken down a notch, because I think I've always felt that there should be somewhat like end game grinds, as also they have stated them in the challenges. You have these 4 end game grinds, right? You have the Chaula, or the breaches, you have the
Bizarro.
Uber, the Isaro, and they have to be kind of on the same level. And so I hope that with new content they're gonna push out that they're kind of, or this is my hope at least, that they keep doing this. But I feel like some of the challenges have gotten a little bit too easy. So I hope they keep them at a certain level so that you can pick whatever end game Uber grind you want to do, and they stay relevant. Because my fear is that some of them become not relevant. Obviously, if they introduce enough content, some of them might just fade out a little bit, and that's maybe okay.
Right. What do you, so interesting Okay. What do you think about the fact that they're right? Didn't it worked for a while that the best way to do these things was to be as defensive as possible,
Yeah.
right? Cap everything, and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And then, I mean, obviously they nerfed that. I
Well,
guess
there
they
was like I do think that you have to be both defensive,
okay.
but with the most damage you could like. Right?
Well, that's true.
There's a certain
That's
level of defense you had to hit, and a certain level of damage you had to hit. But
right,
it wasn't.
right.
It was very hard to hit both of them.
Right. That was why Incinerate was broken, because it scaled with virtually no investment in the
Yeah, yeah,
tree
yeah.
and things like. Well, so then my point being, though, I mean, it feels like the people who do really repetitive, or not repetitive is the wrong word, very safe and
Mm-hmm.
able to repeat
Mm-hmm.
Uber Itzuri kill. It's just full on, Zerg,
Yeah.
right? They kill it before it does anything, and it's been
Yeah.
like that since basically Ascendancy came out, right? First it was the
Yeah.
Firestorm poison thing, then Blade.
Bladefall.
Oh yeah,
Mines.
sorry, and then Bladefall Mines
Mm-hmm.
too, right? I mean, and then it's been Blade Vortex, and then now it's Animate Weapon. I mean, I guess they're all poison stacking. So, but
Yes.
I'm just saying though, it seems like my impression was it felt like they were much more against the max defensive meta than they are against the max offensive meta. I guess because the thought process is, well, if you fuck up, you die, versus
Mm-hmm.
fucking up is part of the defensive meta. You don't care if you fuck up. You're just
Honestly,
dead.
honestly, that's how it feels with everything.
Okay. Okay.
Because look at map mods as well. Oh, we're gonna give you the best XP multiplier and the best map mod, but they're all gonna fuck on defenses.
Right.
Right, so the new ones they introduced, mine are extra accuracy, less dodge, less block, less all these defensive mechanics that are really powerful. Well, they also get that. So, oh, you wanna scale your mitigation stats? Well, too bad, because that's gonna just be bad for you instead of just scaling your damage and leech, and then that's good for you.
Right. Right. So do you think that that's bad, or you think that that's
I
good,
think that's bad.
or okay?
I think that's very bad. I think the kind of disparity between damage and defense has gone. It's way too big now. There's way too much emphasis on just damage, and I know that's what it's for a lot of players. That's what's fun, to do a lot of damage. But I do think there's kind of a limit to where it just, if you keep pushing the game in that direction, well, then that's all we're gonna have from now on, like just
Right.
insta kills and uber bosses.
Well, then you also get to the point where, and I think we've seen at this league, if you are smart about it, like I was playing with ASDF man, and he had 20,000 ES
Yeah.
animate weapon build.
Mm-hmm.
So he's pretty much as defensive as I mean, yes, he can't just, I guess, stand in the fire forever,
Mm.
but that's enough energy shield where you could take almost 2 hits of some boss.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
supposed to be one shot boss slam. And I mean, he has so much damage because of all this other stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, it's the other way. When it was so easy to be defensive, then it was, how do you smartly get through the tree, picking up phase acro, MOM,
Mm-hmm.
and then still do a ton of damage because your skill scales. Now it's like, well, we do so much damage, so that's like, well, we can pull that back, because killing something 101% is just as good as killing it 400%. So
Mm-hmm.
scale your damage all the way. I mean, I know that's not always exactly right, because
I
boss
think
has a lot of health, but you know,
I think one of the things though, especially with all the Uber encounters, is that being able to kill things really fast is an even better defensive mechanic than any defensive mechanic we've ever had.
but that's what I'm saying. We've got, it feels like we've gotten to the point where you could do that and have the defensive stuff, right? You're killing it at that
Yeah, yeah.
max speed.
There are some builds where, but I feel like all of these are poison, and this is getting addressed.
Okay, okay, yeah.
So
So we don't want to beat it to death then, because it's
no,
see what happens. So,
yeah. So I
but I
think
mean,
on that specific point where you get both defense and offense, it's really
right.
only through the severely broken
Stack.
mechanics.
Okay, okay, that's okay. So that's fair. I mean, we'll have to see what this not Parthodon,
Pantheon. Oh,
Pantheon
yeah, yeah, yeah.
system. So,
I'm scared about that, but I think that's gonna be okay.
But I
Right.
mean, it seems like it's going to be another different way to have a more multiplier. So you're going to have your regular more multiplier, then your ascendancy, which is basically
That's what I hope
an
it's not.
insane. Okay,
How
yeah.
much have you seen of it?
I think only the 4 pictures that they've released, which was
Yeah.
like there was a block one they showed, which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
But I mean, that's always whatever they showed was the rough first version.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there's always
I'm kind of afraid if they just slap on too many multipliers in that. I would rather have it being some interesting gameplay defining choices rather than just, oh, here you have your free bonus of X thing.
right. But I think this is a natural, whether or not we want to think about it, it's a natural human thing to want to make the thing you're working on or the thing you're doing the best, right?
Yeah.
And that's good because that's how we get a good game. But that also means that somebody who's designing the Pantheon skill of X, and there's an ascendancy skill that does 2X. So by definition, your base is 2X on the Pantheon skill, right? If you follow what I'm sort of saying. So I think that's where we're... unless they tone down ascendancy, because that's been out a while, and so we can adjust it. I would be thrilled with that personally.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
We're not going to go backwards, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah, but at least it's a fresh. I like that it's a fresh start, so that then people can. Okay, so there's all these new acts, and so there's no way to know what the scaling should be. So then if they make monster life and some things a little higher, or they restrict movement speed a little bit, maybe we won't get some of this stuff, because even though I think that the game is in a pretty good spot in terms of all of these things coming together, there are clearly builds out there that, I mean, I called it, there was the picture of, what's his name? General Tsao's Vol Fireball Strand Run, which it basically was a seizure. That's all I could see that was going on.
Yeah.
And I thought it looked like a clown having a seizure at a Katy Perry concert. Like, it was just, I mean, it was insane. On LSD, I mean, and so...
No, it's like every single ball does like a quarter of the screen in AoE, and then you just...
Right. And it's just fucking all this shit going on. That's... Now, if that's what you want to do, and they want to provide the ability to do that, okay. But I still come back to, as somebody, again, eloquently said in that thread, it doesn't matter that I don't play like that. I still know, because I'm sorry, we don't exist in a vacuum. This isn't we're going to see these things. This is when you're going to go, wow, this guy clears Strand in 30 seconds. And it takes me 5 minutes. I'm still going to feel bad about that. Even if I'm okay with it intellectually, I'm still going to be like, well, I could go faster.
Yes.
So I mean, I do think that limiting, I guess that's going to make people upset. Why does GGG have to limit it? I don't know. That's part of game design. They want to change it up. They want to slow it down. They want to make people do something different.
Well, all you have to do, right, whenever you're faced with that argument, is you have to take something they don't like and then say, well, I would want to do that in this way. And imagine this, because this was my argument against that. Because they really like to do this because it's the most efficient way, right? To farm strands, to get XP, to get loot. Okay.
Right.
How do you feel about the best XP and loot game would be only doing Uber Izaro? This is now the best XP you can ever get. And so the player, right? Because now you're the Uber runner and you really like the play style. And you don't want to have it taken away. But the guy farming strands with Vol Fireball is feeling bad because he's not getting the most XP anymore. And so, right? So if he doesn't want to have anyone else have his cake, well, I'm sorry, but then you can't have it either.
Right. And that's a very fair point. It's interesting that you say that, because that's actually always been my argument against the lab. In some respects, where why can I can skip everything else in the game but this. That's the part that I don't like about it. Even if they did it in such a way, and I actually like the lab, as long as I'm on a lab character and it's a decent lab day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run through it in 2 minutes. I'm never. That's not what I'm interested in. But there's a couple of traps, and it's not too annoying, and then that's fine. And I've done it a whole bunch, and I enjoy it when it's my choice. Again, I come back to, when I farm Uber Lab on my character, I actually have a pretty good time, because it's 100% of my own volition. Going in there on a character that I don't want to ever do lab on, I understand I could pay for a carry. I still have to run through the traps, which traps are the thing that's going to kill you. Azaro's a joke. I'm sorry. He's an interesting boss, but he's not actually tough. Um, I and so it's
Well,
that's what I
at some point you can say that about everything in this game.
no, but absolutely, and I think that goes really well with your point of you. If you don't want anyone else to have your cake, well, then you can't have it too. I don't like the argument from the lab people that it's like, well, we want this to be this special, unique thing. Why though? Like that's the argument I've never really got about it. Now, if they want to, if it wants to retain what makes it special and unique, I'm all for that. I just wish there was something like, again, I can run on my characters and I have an item that I can trade only in my account, which I mean, they don't have that set up. So, but I'm just saying there'd be a way that I could grant another character in my account a kill, or I kill merciless and I get all 6 points. I don't have to do the normal and the cruel lab. But I guess we'll see what 3.0 brings with this, right? Whether they'll retain you go through the lab 4 times or they'll reduce it. So
well,
I'm interested.
They've done a lot to accommodate for players, I think.
They have. You don't have to do the stupid attunements on more than one character, right? Doing that on every character. That whenever that came.
At least for me, at least, I don't think that it's almost not a bother anymore after we've done it once.
Absolutely correct. No, they've improved it quite a bit. It's one of those things where I have like PTSD because that initial thing for me was so bad that even though they've improved it, I still hate. I'm just like, that memory from 9 months ago. I'm like, I hate it. Which, of course, it's interesting because that's sort of what happened with PoE and desync, right? Because people were like, well, it has desync. I can't ever play it. It's crap. And like they had to really like summit the hurdle or summit a mountain to get people to come back and be like, oh wow, I mean, PoE's added all this stuff and there's no decent, so you could see how they're very sensitive to keeping the game and whatever gets people playing the game, because it was a good game. It just had a flaw, and if the flaw bothered you to the extent of you could never play again, well, getting you to come back and play it, sort of. Anyway, but so what are your thoughts then about where we are in the league in terms of we're really kind of on the downswing, which of course that's fine. That's totally expected. GGG talks about how this is how it works. I mean, there is not for people's, depending on your level of how much content you want to consume, there's a part where it falls off. And do you so for you, do your goals change? And I know my goals change once we reach sort of this point in the league. Or do you, since you trade less than maybe some other big streamers, it doesn't really affect you?
Well, I don't get affected too much by kind of the league getting all. It's more about me completing I think for me personally, it's more on how much content I've completed and what I've set myself out to do. And once I've done that, well, then that's it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fine. That's good. It's just
as long as there's new things to explore, then I'm enjoying myself. I don't see it, me doing a Frostblades character on the day 1, 2, 3 versus on day 68, 69, 70 doesn't change a bit.
Right.
If I haven't done it yet and I'm gonna try it out, well, then that's the same to me. The only thing that changes is the amount of stuff available,
right?
Like gear available. But then if you play solo self farm, for instance, if you find that enjoyable, well, then it doesn't even matter either. The same thing with racing, as to why that is always interesting in PoE, because that's always a reset.
Right, exactly. That's why I enjoy it. Right, it's always
for the players who really enjoy just playing the game and having not feeling like they have everything available to them. Well, I feel like that's why they were so enticing.
Yeah, well, so I had played with Karatha, who had been doing a Frostblades character. He died a couple of times. So I was like, wow, this looks really cool. And the new gems that come out, so people are speculating. And so I was like, maybe that's going to be my second character. I really wanted to sort of whatever. But then in Valesco, I'm talking to him. I'm like, what have you been playing? And he's like, I'm playing this Frostblades. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm curious to see it. Now he's made these videos.
Yeah.
So I haven't even bothered looking to see if I could get some cool Frostblade stuff. I've got to assume everything costs $1 million, because whatever he was doing was destroying the content in like a millisecond.
Well,
That's
that's how every build ends up seeing like looking these days.
I guess that's true. What do you think of that oak, the wise oak flask? I don't know if we've talked about that.
It's
It
incredibly
seems a
strong.
little, yeah, it seems a little makes me a little nervous for the future because I've been really hoping that flasks would sort of go back to a little bit what they used to be, but it seems
Okay,
like
so I think it's in line with all the other flasks.
okay,
I don't think it's better than
okay,
say Taste of
Finktar,
Hate.
right? Okay,
Well, I think Vinctor is just straight up better than everything.
okay,
Like
okay,
than
especially the legacy version, right?
yeah. Like then even the new like even the non-legacy version is better than anything
Okay,
in the game. Like Dying Sun after the AoE nerf has nothing on it. Just
right,
it just breaks everything because of the damage and the leech and everything. So as long as we're not there, then well, if it's in line with all the others, then it's kind of okay. Especially since we're kind of we're finally at a point where there's so many unique flasks in the game that you can that it's there's so many choices and things you wanna equip, and there's only so many classes that can equip all of them, and so you always have to like give up something to equip the new one. So if you want to use the Wise Oak, there's often characters give up something else for it, and then I think it's okay. I think let's remove maybe the flash nodes from which or nerf them
okay.
by 50% or something.
What if all of the unique flasks had limit one, like the jewels do? Some of the jewels, because I mean I like sometimes I feel like there's no answer to it if they just there's always going to be a build out there that's going to be better
Okay.
if they can use 5 unique flasks,
Well,
right?
okay, so if you say limit one, then you say limit one of any unique flask. That's what you're saying, right?
Right, exactly. All unique every sort of flask is that you can only have a limit of 1 unique flask on your bar. You have 4 blue flasks and 1 unique flask
Okay.
of any kind. I actually think is a really cool thing, but of course the problem is that's taking stuff away. We're at the point where we've had access to all this
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
so that people
I would rather, I think at this point, on flasks at least, I would rather dial it down a bit.
okay.
Like
That's
dial down
yeah.
as some
So
the
they're
unique
less
flasks,
attractive,
like
where it's like always the
nerf
best
them a
thing to
little
use one.
bit
Okay.
to get them kind of in line to where they need to be.
Right.
And flask effect needs to get nerfed on the tree.
Okay.
Because flask,
I mean,
the flask effect nodes are kind of like you remember inner something, you know, the buff nodes where it buffs on you, like increased
Oh, it's yes, the
buff
one by
effect.
Templar. It increased like 3% of buffs on you or whatever.
Yeah, but there was like a wheel next to the Scion around where EE is now. You don't remember those?
Off
Everyone
the top
took
of my
those
head.
nodes
Okay, well, I'm
basically.
sure I took them too. I'm sure I took
Yeah,
them
because
too.
it increased your flask effect, your aura effect, your everything effect.
Okay.
Okay, maybe you don't remember. Okay, but
I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure I took them, and I'm sure that they were
yeah, yeah,
stupid.
yeah. But this is kind of the same thing now, to where
Right.
since flasks are so powerful, then everyone takes them, and so
Right.
maybe they're too
So
strong. So I think that would
yeah.
help a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just hoping that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. That's a nice topic for a future episode. What are the 10 things we really hope 3.0 addresses? I mean, some of them are obvious, but I mean, like maybe delving deep into something that's maybe less obvious, but is a huge benefit to everybody. So
One thing
I,
I want to like ask you here before we kind of like go towards the end is, so we had this discussion on like the power things and everything, but so where would you like to see, because so stuff like the Uber challenges, like the Uber theory and Shaper and them,
right.
where would you like to see them within the game with 3.0 coming out?
So you're saying, like, where would you do them naturally, or?
Where how high up, like how hard should they be in comparison to the new content, do you
Oh,
think?
well, I think my preference would be they're always above the new content, right? So, like, let's say the ending of Act 10 is a crazy fight, and it's Zeri like, right? Because that's their barometer for bosses. I still would want Itziri, Uber Itziri, maybe Uber Itzaro, Shaper, the Guardians. I'd always want them to be the highest tier, because that way they can adding stuff to the sort of the pantheon. Maybe there's going to be Uber Lunaris, Uber Solaris, or Sin. Or I will say I haven't read all the lore yet for the new stuff, but I would hope that they would stay up there. I get the impression though that that's not how it's going to work. Like some regular series, maybe. I think regular series might be easier than Act 10. Maybe not. I mean, would you say that Malachi is harder than regular Itziri? Let me qualify that.
Okay.
If Malachi was the same level as Itziri in terms of, right, because he's 68 and Itziri's 75, or she's like, I mean, they fiddled with all those.
You're saying
numbers.
Merciless Malachi here?
Right, Merciless Malachi.
Okay.
I actually think it's a tougher boss than Itziri.
You think so? Oh, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe in the beginning, yeah, you're probably right.
You're constricted and your gear sucks, and like, so I actually think it was designed after. I think it's a tougher thing. Now it's not because of levels, and then she's her own zone, whatever. But if you swapped those bosses, I do think that Malachi would be harder if he was in.
You're probably right. There's a little harder.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that I welcome the challenge, and I'm excited for the boss fights because they're going to be tough. I'm hoping that they keep that sort of, because it was a long time ago. You and I talked before we hit the podcast. We had a whole talk about Median XL because I never played it, but you were talking how you really enjoyed how there's all these fights, and some of them your build can't do. Right? You're a poison build, and that boss is poison immune. And it's interesting, since that talk, they have instituted some of that stuff, right? Because is Chimera poison immune? One of the Guardians is poison immune?
Well, they have like bleed immunity, poison immunity, ignite immunity. But these are more basically the only thing they immune right now are all the double dip mechanics. It's the only things they immune. And
they're not immune to
shock and freeze. Things that because, well, freeze, like, it's like if it doesn't do anything, if it doesn't move, well, then it's not really a fight. So I can see why that needs to.
But can't you throw Vol Lightning Trap, or does Vol Lightning Trap ignore the shock?
Some of them you can.
Okay.
Well, you can shock anything that can be Vol Lightning trapped is not shock immune.
Oh, okay.
So you can use Vinctars as well and stuff like that, and you could shock them potentially as well if you hit hard enough.
Right. Okay. Well, so what do you think then? Because it sounds like something you've thought about.
No, I would really like them to maintain like anything that has the tag Uber needs to be on a certain level. I think that should be like the threshold, right? So we want all our Uber fights to be of a certain threshold, regardless of when they're implemented. So if it's at the point where it's too easy, I actually don't think Uber series is too easy. I think it's just because we have two good ways of cheesing it. It was the same thing with ball disciplines, where you could stack multiple of those.
Right.
That was just too much of a, like, all these cheesing mechanics. If they go, I think she's on a pretty good level. I consider poison cheesing as well, because it's absurd damage to where the game. I don't think the game should be in a state where we had that much damage, because you get into these scenarios where you never really fight the boss. So as long as every fight by endgame characters becomes a fight to where, okay, you're actually hitting her, she's hitting you back, kind of.
You have to respond. Yeah, yes. Right. Instead of just the that's how fast she died.
yeah. I think that's important. That there is interaction between player and boss. As long as they can keep that throughout, and with expansions and everything, I think we're in a good spot.
Okay. Yeah, I think I definitely agree. And I have to say I'm very interested to see. I mean, there's always going to be a cheese, right? That's the thing.
Well, that's what players always strive towards, right? To find the cheese.
The cheese, yeah. The question is, will it be? It feels like this is the most cheese. This is the most cheese ever.
Yeah.
Now, interesting. I always thought about this. I've never actually looked it up, but it's funny. Here we are. I could have just looked it up. Easy Google, I'm sure. But does GGG call it Uber Itziri and Uber Azaro? That's the term for Uber Diablo, right? But was Diablo's name in the game Uber Diablo? Did it say that in Diablo 2 when you summoned it? Or it said Uber Diablo has been summoned, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think the name Uber
but what's her name is not Uber Itsuri,
Is it not?
right? I don't
Well,
know if I'm saying
she's
I don't
not
know.
called it, but
Yeah. No, I'm just saying it's funny
what
how
is it in the
we you because
challenges?
you said anything called Uber, and then
Yes.
just sort of then it's like, but then if it's not actually labeled Uber or it's not, like so that just brings the question: how do we determine what's in that group and what's not? Like so
Uh,
is core Malachi in there or the Guardians Ubers? You know what I mean? In
I would
some sense,
say,
how do you,
well, Core Malachi is definitely not. All those are. The whole map system has its own kind of like system, right? So
right?
everything in the map system, there's going to be where the end is Shaper, right? He is the
Okay.
Uber now,
Okay.
right? Core Malachi was the toughest before, and that was the had to be the equivalent of Uber at Siri, which has to be the equivalent of whatever X other Uber challenge they have, kind of.
Okay. Right.
Obviously, there's always going to be some of them, and I think that's how it should be. That should be some of them are going to be a little easier, some of them are going to be a little harder. Like being to a square is a hard map, but it's not on the same tier, right? It's kind of a little below, I would assume. I
Right.
haven't actually run it myself. I've been in there a few times. It didn't seem as it was that hard, but it's a step up from most of the other content. And then you have all the prophecies as well, which is kind of hard, and you have all the talisman stuff, which is kind of hard.
Right.
But
Right.
I mean, you can't have everything at the exact same level. That's
No, it would never work out
no,
anyway.
no, no.
Same thing with builds, right? There's always going to be one build that's
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
even if the game is perfectly balanced. There'd just
yeah,
be something. A different skill would do something different, and yeah, I mean,
yeah.
one would be better. So, okay, well, I think that's a nice sort of a nice little spot to sort of cap the
Yeah.
discussion there. Yeah. I do want to say it's been great. We've had people watching on your YouTube. We've had people
Mm-hmm.
going and downloading from however they want to listen to the podcast. Is great. Anyone who doesn't know, we do have a website, thecoffeetalkpodcast.com, and you can go and listen there, or you could subscribe there, and we are available on all things, literally
All the
every single
things.
possible way you can listen. Um, they can find us. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want to thank everyone for being here, and it was a good discussion, Nikki.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I guess if people are here, obviously know where your YouTube is, but we should say where your YouTube is in case they want to watch.
Yes. So YouTube is nugiyen, my normal tag, my handle, the same as here on Twitch. And Morris, where can they find you?
Twitch TV/Moore's Rage NG. That's me. That's where you can find me. All hours of the day when my internet works.
Oh, on an ending note, how is that going?
It's a really interesting sort of foray into the field of network problems because, I mean, people have all these horror stories. If
Mm-hmm.
you're persistent and you're polite, people want to fix things for you.
This is correct.
Um, and, people are trying to fix things. There's no, like, at one point, there were literally 3 trucks and
Wow.
7 guys at my apartment building trying to fix this problem. And they were like, we've never seen this problem before. And and you read online, people are like that's the bullshit they tell everyone. I mean, I guess so, but I've seen them do a bunch of different stuff, and in the past, it's fixed things. Like if they're
Like if they send
and
out 7 guys, there's
they're
something
trying.
wrong. Yeah.
There's something wrong. No, and so at this point, we know what the problem is. I guess there's 2 types of channels. There's upstream and downstream.
Okay.
At least in America, I think it's different in Europe, right? Because most of Europe, and I would assume China, your up and down is the same. So like you have 100 up and 100 down, or you have 200
No,
up or
I
two.
think
No,
most.
okay. I see people talking about like their Finnish internet and they have 100.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
like,
but these are all the people on the fiber. The
okay,
Here in Denmark, we're not all privy to that yet, and for the most
okay.
of Europe, I don't think we are either.
Oh, okay.
But for all the privileged ones, then yes, that is the fiber where you have 100 and above,
Okay.
or 50
So yeah,
50 or whatever.
I guess some of the network is fiber here, but
Hmm.
from where it stops to then your apartment is not fiber, so it slows
Oh,
down.
okay. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I guess there's these channels. So I guess as I understand, there's 16 down and 4 up channels. So that's why,
Okay.
at least here in America, you get something like 300 down and then 20 up because there's
Hmm.
4 channels to go amongst the, say, 100 people on your same little network. And then there's 16 channels to go. So you can get more speed. So
Hmm.
anyway, so there's a problem with the up in my
Okay.
area. So that's why streaming and everything and gaming is affected, because gaming wants both directions.
Yeah.
But if you're just watching Netflix,
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You can't tell. So of course, 99% of people, they're not going to call and complain. So it's a priority for them. But obviously, if somebody's internet goes down, or like a whole block's internet goes down, they're going to fix that before they fix this. So I think that's why there's been some delay.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, they know what it is. They see it. So we have to hope. I just hope it sticks for 3.0 at this point, right? Like,
yeah.
That's all I hope. I don't have any other. I don't have any choice for internet. That's the big problem. I can't switch.
No, I'm in the same boat. My internet is kind of crap. I hope just holds out until in 3.0 as well.
Yes, because 3.0, the beta and the 3.0, I don't want to be having connection problems when there could be people coming to my channel and enjoying stuff, and people are like, we haven't seen you rage in a while. Dude, all my rage has been focused on the phone call, the customer support. I'm like raged out. So anyway. Nice place to end there.
Yeah.
on the sour internet note. But yeah, thanks very much for being here, guys.
Yeah. Thanks
Take
for
it easy.
listening in.